Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SirLinksalot podcast. I am your host, Artemis, and today's guest is actually someone who our longtime listeners and watchers will recognize right away. So this is someone I'm especially excited to introduce to our newer viewers as well. He has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners level up their leadership skills and scale their teams more effectively. We are talking about none other than Mads Singers. Now, Mads is a management coach, consultant, and speaker who spent over 12 years helping businesses of all sizes, from global giants like Shell and Coca-Cola to fast-moving online entrepreneurs, mastering the art of people management. So what does a specialty mean? He's teaching effective delegation, leadership through this framework, and he's building management systems that actually work. Now, that's not just in theory, but also in the real messy world of business, which he knows all about as someone who has also founded multiple companies himself. So if you're feeling overwhelmed leading a team or wondering how to be a better manager without burning out, this episode is for you. So let's go ahead and dive in. First of all, thank you so much for joining us today, Mads.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here as always.
The pleasure is all mine. So we already did go over your personal background before in the last podcast. So I'm just going to kind of start with your professional experience right now. I want you to take us back to the beginning. How did you first get into management and leadership coaching?
I'd say a role model. So my whole entire life, I had been told that when you get a real job and when you get out in the real world, life sucks. Every adult around me was very busy telling me that. And that was not necessarily what I found. And a big reason for that was one of my first managers and one of my first jobs. She was absolutely amazing at managing people, and people actually enjoyed working. And I mean, it's not like you run to work and joy, but it wasn't. So I got very inspired, and I'm like, well, great. If she can make people enjoy work and love life and all of this good stuff, then maybe I should learn to do that too. And so for me, that was very much the inspiration behind really getting into management, and spent some time in school that I didn't enjoy much. I probably the US equivalent will be I passed primary school, and that's probably about the extent it managed to go to. But and yeah, so when we talked about management, a lot of people told me I had to go and get some degree or some education, whatever. But I wasn't into that, so I basically just started significant amounts of self-study. So this was back before YouTube and all of this stuff was as big as it is today. So the way it started out was me walking into a library, having no idea what I was looking at, picking 10 random books with the name management or leadership in them, and that was about it. So I spent many years, and hundreds of books, learning and growing and developing and making all the mistakes just like everyone else. And yeah, eventually.
Well, that's how you know that you really are cut out for it, is when you can walk into a physical library and manage to make everything go from there, not with YouTube, Google, ChatGPT, just some books and your own ambition. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, life is significantly easier nowadays. When you want to learn stuff nowadays, it's right at your fingertips, right? So yeah,
Right.
back then, like there was no reviews, there was no, there wasn't like, hey, this is the 5 best books. It was read some books, and some of them severely sucked. And this was the other problem is a lot of the time when you walk into a library, sometimes the librarians know a bunch about books, but none of them are into management. They're always into novels or fiction or whatever, some kind of stuff. But none of them, like every time I ask someone, they just stared at me like I'm a ghost. But yeah, I get very little answers from that direction, right?
Right,
Um,
right.
yeah.
I'm curious, do you find that there's like a certain personality type that does well with management in general? It seems like people who are go-getters like you tend to either go one of two ways. They're either really good at, doing the management portion, or they're really good at doing like the very raw building entrepreneurship type of portion, but they're not necessarily the best with people.
So I am not by any stretch of imagination a go-getter. I am by
Really?
by nature a significant introvert who at 18 really struggled to talk to other humans. I like who I am today is a very different person than I was 20 years ago. For me, like I come at management from a very different angle, and everything I've learned is that anyone can know how to manage and learn how to lead, right? There's a lot of people that we look at as a society and say, wow, they are a natural leader. But a lot of the time, when people we look to are often people that are very assertive, very direct, and so on. And those are often the people that sort of we consider to be natural with leadership. But reality is, whatever your personality is, you got stuff to learn when it comes to management, right? It doesn't come natural to anyone. So I spend a lot of time on personality types and so on. And reality is every personality have things to learn. Now, some of the things might look more scary than others or whatever, but I've seen good managers with every types of personality out there. It's much more a question of the desire and willingness to learn, and it's the willingness to do difficult things. Because reality is, in any management role, whatever your personality is, sometimes you have to do things that don't come natural to you. Sometimes we need to do difficult things. Sometimes we need to do things that are just not something that's our natural thing, but we have to learn to do it, because that's how we get the most out of people around us. And that's my experience. Is I've worked with, again, thousands of people. My experience is anyone that wants to learn to manage can. The biggest differentiator, like all things in life, like this is our inhibitor, right? The only thing that's holding us back is our mind. And it's very easy to say, oh, I don't want to. And I mean, I spend quite a few of my clients in the world of SEO, right? And most days they'll come to me and say, I just want to do SEO. I'm like, it's not that they actually want to do SEO. In most cases, they actually want to make money, but they're comfortable with SEO. So they stay in that lane, and they don't understand, like management, for example, or they don't understand a lot of business. And because of that, it's quote easier just to do the things what it's like. But reality is, most people, when they get, like majority of people who've gone through my training course, literally turn around and they go from I want to do SEO to I don't want to do SEO. Because reality is, when you can get stuff done without having to do it, it is a lot more fun. Like, there is 0 people on planet Earth who sits and enjoy writing meta description for the time.
I think I know a guy, but for the most part, no, it's not the most fun part.
Like, it isn't. And reality is, most people like doing it because they trust themselves and they know what they're getting and so on. And it's maybe not horrible, but the problem is, in many cases, when they keep being the expert, they keep being the SEO or keep being whatever, the developer, like their potential is somewhat limited, right? Whereas when you run business, there's literally no limits. So it's much more a question of asking yourself the real question, which is, am I just not doing this because I don't know what to do and I'm afraid to learn? Or is it really that SEO is so much loved that, again, if you have to sit and build 7 billion internal links the next 3 years, it will be the most exciting thing you could ever think about, right?
Right. That's a pretty valuable perspective. And especially coming from you as someone who, honestly, I feel like if you had an aversion towards doing hard things, then you wouldn't even be close to where you are right now in your career. So doing all of these managing and speaking engagements while running, 4 to 6 businesses? I think I've lost track at this point. I don't know how you keep track. It's not a small thing to do. So I wanted to know what your biggest tip would be for someone like you who might be trying to balance all of these really hard things and, still want to have time to do things that need to get done without burning out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm incredibly lazy, but the key thing is understanding what matters, right? Again, a lot of SEOs have their big checklist of 100,000 things that need to be done for each side. My logical question is, what are the 2 or 3 things that makes a difference? And that's the same thing in business. Most people spend so much time doing a lot of things to feel they're doing a lot of things. Like this sort of hustle culture is, you need to work all the time and you need to push. Like, the biggest challenge is that like, when you look at Elon Musk, he's not successful because he works 16 hours a day. He's successful because he's working 16 hours a day on the right things. But there is a gigantic difference, because most human beings, when they work 10 hours a day, they're ineffective as hell, right? Most human beings, even 6 hours, if you get good work out of yourself 6 hours a day, and it's the stuff that matters, it's the stuff that moves the needle, it's the important things, it's not the fires, it's not the shiny objects, it's not all of that stuff, it's the stuff that really moves your business forward. If you do 6 hours work a day and you have a significant focus on that, you're going to be way more successful than someone grinding 12 hours a day doing the wrong things.
That makes complete sense. And the actual size of these tasks completely varies just based off of the size of the company, the goals of the company, things like that. And I know that you've worked with both huge corporations and like smaller entrepreneurs as well. Do you have a similar approach to managing these tasks, or finding what would be the most important task to focus on based off of the size of the company? Or do you have a completely different system just based off of the situation?
No, it's your job is like if you're a manager in a company, if you're an owner or whatever, it's really about having some honest discussions with yourself. Like
Mm,
one of the things I love doing is sitting down with myself, looking at one of my companies and saying, what would it take to double this thing, right? What would we need to do? What would we need to change? Some companies have no sales funnel, no customer acquisition funnel. Some companies have no view of their cash flow. They're constantly running into issues and limitations because they don't understand their finances. Some companies can't deliver. But reality is at a point in time, if you sit down with yourself and say, what is one thing that I can do the next week's month, whatever, that would put my business in a significantly better place? What is that?
right. And I'm curious, what does that normally look like with your clients? Like, what is the trigger that makes them think, oh shit, we need to phone a friend and call in some help because I can't figure this out?
So again, the biggest thing is people love feeling productive, and it's so easy if you're busy doing things. It's so easy saying, "Oh, I don't have the time to this, or I don't have the time." I try and never use the phrasing "I don't have the time" because we all have the same time. And what I always say is, when the president of the United States can find time to go to the gym, I can probably find time to go to the gym. When they can find time to spend an hour a day on personal development, I can probably find an hour a day on personal development, right? So
Right.
it is not that you don't have time. It is if you're not winning, it is because you're using your time on the wrong things, right?
Gotcha.
So really understanding number one, like in a business, right? Like again, most people end up as executors. Most people, if they take a week's holiday, their business crashes, right? Or a month holiday or whatever,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So as a good starting point is learning to delegate and really learning to get out of the rough with that. But the essential thing is being capable. And sometimes you can phone a friend and you can say, hey, if you could really make a significant change in my business, where would it be? And if you look at many SEOs, a lot of those changes are often not in operations. It's not about like SEOs spend so much time trying to find one hack, one tip, and they think if I just knew a little bit more SEO, if I could just rank a little bit better, a little bit faster, then I'll be successful. And no matter
Right.
how many tips they learn, no matter how much faster they rank, it never changes because their struggles are often otherwise. It's often in sales, it's often in lead generation, it's often in other areas, right? And
Right.
that's and don't get me wrong, there's probably one or two that succeeds by being a total expert at SEO and they're lucky enough that the right people know them or get to know them or whatever. But reality is most people, their success is exceptionally limited by their lack of business and leadership skills in general.
That makes complete sense. That kind of makes me wonder, like, with the clients that you have and the SEOs that you've seen, I know that in the industry, it's really easy to kind of get tunnel vision when, all these people are focusing on their grind and they have in their head, this is what I have to do. These are the people I have to connect with in order to grow my business. Are they receptive when you tell them and you sit them down and you're just kind of like, that's not necessarily the case. Like you're just completely approaching this all wrong. Or do they not really give you much pushback?
Most people never get to the point that you just said, which is who do I need to connect with? So the problem is most of the people are too busy doing stuff. And reality is we can only ever do so much stuff. We have two arms. Now we have some AI armies. So now we can do more stuff, unfortunately. We're going to be even more successful, even though probably not. But again, in most cases, it's not about doing stuff. A lot of it is about relationships. A lot of it is thinking about, again, if my business was to double, if I was to increase something significant, even asking the question, can I? Like, let's say if you 10x the amount of leads you had right now, like from tomorrow, you'd get 10x the amount of leads you used to have. Could you handle it? What would it take? Do you not have the right systems? Maybe we should look at that. Do you not have the right sales team? Do you not have the right sales capacity or the right sales skills? And maybe you have a ton of leads, but you can't close them. What are the issues, right? And those are the things that as a business owner, you need to spend the time focusing on those, because those are the things that really moves the business forward. If you're
Right.
learning a little bit more, if you deliver 5% more for each of your customers, well, it might keep them paying their bills, but it's not going to grow your company, right? And
Right.
that's the core aspect that you really want to look at is what is it? Because here's the thing, every business is a shit show all the time. Every business, because here's the
That's
thing.
lofty.
Here's the thing. If you're winning in sales, operations is dying. If your operations is amazing, it's usually because there's not enough new customers coming in to give you a headache.
I
Now,
see what you mean.
there's always somewhere that's struggling. You're either not getting enough leads, you're not getting enough sales, or you're not delivering for your customers, or you don't have the cash flow, you don't have the finance situation to deliver, or whatever, right? There's always a shortcoming somewhere. And your goal as a business owner is to say, okay, where's the next bottleneck going to come? Okay, what are we going to do to get ready to move ahead on that, right? Because
Right.
that way you'll never avoid bottleneck. There's always going to be a bottleneck somewhere, but your ability to grow and the speed you can grow with and the amount of money you can make is dependent on how much time you spend on that versus spending on day-to-day operations.
I see. So when shit is constantly hitting the fan, I imagine that, making those changes has a pretty big impact. Do you have a story of a time where there was one change that you implemented that actually made such a huge impact on your client that it felt like you were like, this is why I do this. This was really rewarding.
Yeah, tons.
I want your
A
favorite.
great example. Great example. I've been running an outsourcing company for 10 years or so, and for a long time we had very good processes. We executed really well, and we implemented a new recruitment tool. And we had so many processes and so many workflows, and onboarding new people was really difficult. And suddenly everything was pretty much in one tool. It was a total game changer, right?
Right.
Like most people, we were like, yeah, what we have works. But we didn't necessarily consistently look at, like we were looking at the results we were getting of the existing processes. Great. So life is good. But we were not looking at, again, if we 10x, well, yeah, we could 10x the same process, but it would have been a nightmare in training and recruitment and so on. And now the things like our ability to scale is significantly easier. So we basically, within that company, the last 12 months, we have pretty much doubled our revenue,
Wow.
and we've doubled our recruitment team. But with the old systems, with the old tools, that would have been very difficult to do in, I would say, probably taking a year to do what we did in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right?
That's amazing.
So that's just an example, and it happens everywhere. Like it happens to every single business all the time. It's always a question of where's the bottleneck, what are you doing proactively to mitigate that and be ready to say, okay, right now we have a ton of sales, but summer's coming up, so it's going to be 2 months where nothing happens, and you're like, okay, what are we going to do when that is the case, and so on, right?
So do you ever have any clients that just don't listen? Like they don't do what you tell them to do, and then they're surprised when that bottleneck turns into a complete mess or processes are just falling through the holes all the time because they're not applying the advice they're being given properly?
I don't have a lot of clients who don't listen at all. I obviously have people who try and do things and sometimes fail and sometimes succeed more than others. But I think as a coach, the most important skill is being able to explain things in a simple way that makes sense, right? So very much the opposite of SEOs. When SEOs try and talk to client, they talk a language that's up here that no one understands. But my whole goal is to explaining to people why they should do things in a way and in a manner with the language that help them be like, oh wow, now that works,
Just
right?
kind
So
of meet them where they're at. Yeah.
your goal is not saying the right things. It's not just say, oh, you should delegate. Well, everyone freaking knows they should delegate. That's not a surprise, right? Like everyone I talk to about delegation is they're like, yeah, I know I should delegate more, right? It's not about saying delegate. That doesn't help. It's about helping them understand why, like the mindset around it. How do you get into that mindset? How do you really make sure you push it? Because the reason why most people don't delegate is because they don't have the right mindset around it. So you
I
have
see.
you have the mindset around it, then you have the how. How do you do it the right way? How do you ensure you get the right outputs and so on, right? And when you talk to people, when you go down to the mindset, when you understand, make them think about things the right way, that is usually what makes them not want to do it. They want to do it all the time, but that's what makes them take action. And that's probably the number one thing, because I mean, you can coach as much as you want, but if people don't do anything with it, it's useless, right? So
Right.
it's all about, it's learning, and I really recommend SEOs to do the exact same thing, right? Learning to explain to a customer in their way why it matters. Because the amount of SEOs that are like, yeah, every time I send something to the client, it takes like 4.5 years before they publish it. And here's the reason: they don't get why it's important. If they understood, hey, if I publish this stuff, my business is going to grow. I'm going to get more leads and clients. They will be significantly faster at doing that stuff. But they don't get it.
It sounds like there's a little bit of a psychological component to the work that you do. And I know that you're a big advocate of the DISC behavior model. So before I ask these next questions, I kind of want to give our listeners a rundown of exactly what that entails so that everybody has some context. So would you mind letting us know what is it and what makes it so effective?
But this is just every human being. We have natural genetics, right? So there's things that naturally makes us us. And what that means is some people have voices that are very loud. Some people have voices that's very quiet. Some people smile nonstop. Some people never smile. And those are just examples of behavior that that are very genetic, right? So that's the way you are. Now the thing is, those behaviors, it tells you a lot about people. So knowing that, so getting to understand behaviors, that helps you understand how people behave with certain personality types. And the whole thing about this, like most other behavioral framework, you can get people to do a test and they'll give you somewhat accurate answers. But the whole thing about DISC is like you can learn to look at a human being for 30 seconds, a minute, and by doing that, you can understand who they are. And by who they are, I mean how they're motivated, what are they good at, right? Would you hire them as an accountant? Would they be a great salesperson? Would they be a great developer? Would they what kind of stuff would they naturally be good at, right? And
Right.
the whole thing for me is that if you learn to understand that, that helps with one of the big management challenges, or two of them. One of them is hiring the right people for the right roles, and number two is putting the right people in the right seat. So sometimes you have some brilliant people in your business, but they're doing the wrong stuff. And often it's because you needed someone to do something and they ended up being the one, but they're maybe not in a place where they're utilizing their natural strength to the best of their ability. And therefore, they're not necessarily getting the results they could be getting.
So if there's a hole in these processes that is having a company, causing them to struggle, would you normally have them train or retrain an employee that they already have and repurpose them into doing something that could be a better fit for their personality type and their skills, or hire someone else for
Could,
that?
it could be many things. It could be either or. Sometimes in companies, some companies hold on to people too much. So a lot of the time they're like, oh, we have this person, they've kind of tried 3 different jobs and they suck at them all. And you're like, well, they probably shouldn't be there. So what I tell people is you only move people to a different role if there's an actual need. Because else, particularly in small businesses, extra staff is really expensive. Like having someone in a role that's not really needed and you're kind of creating a role because you don't want to fire them or you're uncomfortable firing them. And, that's often not a great idea. If you have an actual need in a role that fits their personality, test it out, right?
Right.
But don't like particularly when you have small companies, if you have 2 or 3 people and then someone is like they suck at a role you have hired them for and you're trying to train them in something else that the company don't really need, or it sounds good, or it will be like, I see a ton of time with social media, like the amount of social media people out there who were like, yeah, they had this job but they sucked, and now they're doing social media because the company heard they should do social media, and they have no skills, they have no knowledge, they have no anything around social media. Again, some people could learn to get good at it, but a lot of the time it's just somewhere to park them that sounds like it's business value, but really it's just an excuse for the owner in many cases not to do the right thing.
Gotcha. I've definitely seen that play out before as well, because a lot of people think that social media in general is just kind of like an intern job and something that doesn't require an actual skill. which is becoming less and less true every single day. But I can see why it would kind of be the, oh, here, just do something with yourself kind of role. Speaking of social media, I actually follow your social media. I'm a fan. And you mentioned on your recent social media posts on both Facebook and LinkedIn that most leaders don't think to do one-on-ones or performance reviews. And I love that one because I've seen both of these done very poorly on several occasions, to the point where they are either outright unhelpful or they're just really anxiety inducing for employees. So I would love to hear more about this take that you posted on why it's necessary for good one-on-ones and their subsequent performance reviews, and also kind of what that would look like as well.
Yeah, I fundamentally believe the most powerful tool you have as a manager is one-to-ones. So spending time on a weekly basis with the individuals reporting to you. That is the number one thing. Every single time I do a training with a company, every time I talk to people, they're always, I don't have time. And let me be very straightforward. You don't have the time to spend 30 minutes every week with someone who's reporting to you, like directly to you. You're doing the wrong things.
Okay.
Right? Because here's the thing. The people that work for you, the people that work in your team, your number one goal as a manager is to get the most out of those people. If you're not investing any time in those people, you are 100% doing the wrong thing. I don't care how busy you are. I don't care how very important stuff you are doing. This is the whole point about delegation. If you are the bottleneck, if you're holding things back, you push it down and you delegate it to people who work for you, and you spend more time making sure that they do a great job. And you spend more time coaching them, having great conversations with them. Here's the thing. For every single one of your listeners, yourself included, I don't know your background. I don't know where you come from. I don't know any of that stuff. But what I can promise you is, and this is the same for every single manager, every single business owner, you are where you are right now because at some point in your career, someone trusted you.
That is definitely true for myself as well.
Someone gave you ownership, said, hey, we don't know how to get traffic to our website. Can you figure it out? Or, hey, we have we need some kind of website. Can you build it? Or whatever the ownership is, it doesn't matter. But if you're successful, if you're doing relatively decent at anything, it is typically because someone gave you ownership, responsibility, and trust.
Do you find that a lot of managers struggle with trusting the employees that they hire to do a specific job, and that's kind of where they start falling short?
Here's the problem. Sometimes at one point, someone believed in you, even when they didn't have a need to, even when they didn't have an excuse to. Maybe you hadn't even proved you were anything, but someone still chose to trust you and give you some ownership and give you some responsibility. And here's the thing. As a leader and as a manager, when you're not doing that, you're holding the company back. You're literally slowing down the company growth by you're purposefully holding back the company growth to do it yourself. And that it's not even about, I mean, okay, if you hire very, very, very poor people, okay, but then number one, don't hire very poor people.
Always a good start.
Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I want to do a bad job. It doesn't happen. Maybe out of 6 billion people, there might be one who absolutely hates someone and hated a boss or whatever. But like, again, I don't know you, but I know that you've never woken up in the morning and said, I want to do a bad job today. Like
I don't think I have, no.
When we go into an office, when we sit down in front of our computer at home, whatever, when we are working, we want to do a good job. If I don't do a good job, it's either I'm not the right guy for the job, I don't have the skills, at least yet, or I'm not being managed well. And all of those three is the responsibility of my boss.
All of them.
If I am in the wrong job, someone hired me who shouldn't have. If my personality doesn't fit the job I'm in, that is my boss's fault. If I don't have the skills, then it is the company's responsibility to an extent. Well, they should know it up front. They know, okay, I'm taking a gamble of someone who don't know what to do yet. I'm going to try and train them. I'm going to try and get them up to speed. But fundamentally, I'm not saying take no ownership. But I'm saying if I hire someone and I know they don't have the skills yet, it is definitely my job and my focus to help them get there. And by saying I don't have the time to spend time with them, that's definitely the best way to never get there, right?
Right. I've noticed that this kind of the approach to management in general differs a lot. Some managers will say, I'm more likely to want to train these people. I'll hire somebody who has drive and then I'll train them up to be what I want them to be. And then some other people will say, like, I want someone who has all the skills so I can, trust right away. Is there any particular approach that you recommend to your clients or that you use on your own business, or does it just kind of depend on the goals?
That's not a right or wrong. I'll add a lot of comments to that one. So number one, it's all about attitude and mindset. The skills itself is whatever in most cases. Like obviously, if you hire a developer, they need to be able to develop. But I would take if I have a developer that's amazing with a horrible attitude, or a developer who's half decent with an amazing attitude, I'll take the less skilled person every single day of the week.
Really?
Because attitude, mindset is so critical for culture, so critical for success in general, right? Like our success generally depend on how we think about things. And what you will see, like if you look around, if you think about the best colleagues you've had, they have not necessarily been the best people because they were the top number one person in their field. It's way more about their mindset, their attitude, how they react to situations, how they react to stuff happening around them, right? So that I think that's probably the first aspect. Then I would say after that, I would say if you hire people who already have the skill, it is often more expensive. So if you can afford to do that as a business, if you can find people who have a great mindset, a great attitude, and great skill, that obviously shortcuts a lot because it means you can get stuff done faster. Um, and but reality is many companies can't afford that. So many
Right.
companies don't have 100K a year to go and pay for whatever role, right? So particularly when you're in a smaller company, you have to be somewhat smart about your spending. So very often you have to compromise somehow. You either hire someone who's got a little bit of skill or someone with no skill, but then have to train them and so on. And obviously different roles are different, right? Like I'll never hire someone who can't develop to learn how to develop because it takes a long time, right? Now, I could hire someone who have never done sales to maybe do sales. Now, it can still take a long time to get good at it, but you can often get some results if you hire the right people in a shorter span of time, right?
Right.
So in general, it's more a question of where are you from a company, how is your company structured, right? Like sometimes certain business models, you have way more financial flexibility, right? So if you have a very scalable business model, if you're running a SaaS tool, you might be able to have a few exceptionally well-paid people. Whereas if you're running an agency where the margins are very thin, you might have a very difficult time having people that are very well paid, right? So again, there's a lot of dependencies, but generally I would say there's not a right or wrong. It's about looking at your business, the situation you're in, and what makes sense based on that.
Which do you tend to gravitate towards for your own businesses? Do you prefer to train people to do things your own way or the way that you like to do, or have someone who has like more skill if you have the budget for it?
Totally depend on the company. So
I,
our outsourcing company, where it's low margins, everyone is hired from scratch, don't care about the skills. We're pretty much just teach people what they need from scratch. We have a SaaS tool, HeyRamp, which that is total opposite. Like it's a SaaS tool. We have one developer who is absolutely next level. We have a couple of people. I mean, generally it's a top notch team, right?
right.
Um, so depending on the company, depending on the situation, I don't have a particular preference. Like in general, I would say there's two things I gravitate to. I love giving great people opportunity, but I also love delivering value. And sometimes if you have the budget, if you have the company where you can go and hire exceptionally smart people and get really great result at a very short span of time, that's exceptionally rewarding as well, right?
Right.
So I I don't particularly have a preference, to be honest.
Gotcha. I noticed that a lot of the kind of leadership qualities that you describe, or some of the methods that you describe, like, from things to hiring to task delegation. All those things are also kind of culturally dictated as well. And as someone with clients all over the world, I want to know if you've noticed that there's a particular like region of the world that tends to do leadership and management one way, or does it the way that is more effective, or just in a way that maybe evades you? Like you're like, why do you guys keep on doing it this way? Is this like a cultural thing or what? Like, I'm really interested to hear your experience as someone who has had clients all over the map.
My baseline is everybody sucks. And I say that with kindness and love. But what I mean is, reality is in most companies, they hire a sales guy, they give them training. They hire a marketing person, they give them training. They hire a customer service person, they give them training. They promote someone into management, and they're just like, yeah, they'll probably figure it out.
This is a global phenomenon you've noticed.
Global phenomenon. I mean, one of the things that really surprising, one of the best organizations on planet Earth at management training and leadership development is McDonald's. And here's the thing, they're good, but they look exceptionally good because everyone else sucks, to put it politely.
So
Right?
the bar is here, and because the bar
Right.
is here, McDonald's is here, is what you mean.
Right.
I see.
Exactly. And this is the thing, like reality is most, even large companies, haven't got structured training and development and growth for leaders and managers. Like they often do some things sometimes. It's like, oh, well, we haven't done any leadership development for 4 years. Let's hire someone and get something done for a couple of days. And then like reality is when like you have this good old saying that the best sales guy doesn't make the best sales manager, or the best engineer doesn't make the best engineering manager. And I think that's fundamentally flawed. I think if someone can learn to be a great sales guy, they can also learn how to be a great manager. If someone can learn how to be a great engineer, they can generally also learn how to be a good manager. The problem is being a great engineer or being a great sales guy doesn't mean you're a great manager.
I see.
But if you have the ability to learn to be great at something, you can learn to be great at other things too.
So
right?
what you're saying is people normally just take like someone who is great at their job and assume that they'll also be a great manager as well.
Yes.
I see.
And the thing is, management is a totally different skill set than most jobs most people do. It is a totally different skill set. It requires different training. It requires different learning, at least if people haven't done it in the past, right?
Right. And is this like a continuing process? I know that you mentioned that some companies think, oh, maybe just once every 4 years, let's just leadership train people. Do you recommend that people do it more often, or is it just something that they should be constantly developing?
It's my focus when you build a good company culture, when you have grown and developing leaders that are doing great leadership, what happens is the people around them who observe them start realizing what they're doing. So it's like if you've always seen your boss do something like one-to-ones, if your boss have consistently done one-to-ones with you every single week and you get promoted into your boss's role, you're pretty likely to do one-to-ones because
Right.
you're being good examples of what to do. Now, you might not have all the logic, you might not have all the flows behind like why you're doing what and so on, but just even the steps. Like if you have a manager who's constantly delegating to you and constantly pushing you to delegate, you are more likely to do the same if you get promoted, right? Now, again, there's still some learning around it, but the core thing for me is it's going in, really getting your whole management team on the same page, and then making sure that when new people move into a management role, that you have like sometimes it can even be coaching. I mean, sometimes it can be you have a great manager in a team and you want them to coach new people, right? So when I worked in IBM, they were pretty decent at it, and they both had some management training, and there was occasionally you had. I mean, I probably took some initiative myself as well, but there was people who would coach you, there was people who would give you some feedback and so on, right? And that was good. But I think fundamentally the biggest flaws for most companies is just the system around it. Like, so number one is have company-wide management processes. So make sure at a business level, everyone's doing one-to-ones. Make sure they're all doing performance reviews, right? Have good numbers, have good data, have tools where you can track this stuff and see it happens. Because here's the thing, when you're sitting down with a manager and saying, are you doing your one-to-one? It's like, yeah, totally. And then you talk with an employee and you realize they hadn't had a one-to-one for 6 months. And you're like, well, okay, maybe they want it, right? But make sure you like your management processes. It's I would say they're probably even more important to document than your regular business process, like your sort of execution processes, right? Like have good process. How are you doing your yearly planning? Have a process for it, so that when new people come into the company, they can see, oh, we're going to have yearly planning. How are we going to do that, right? When they're looking at the business in general, you want to have these management processes. You want to have these management workflows that helps your managers be better managers.
Right. That's a lot for a business to tackle, from management to processes to hiring. So before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a very pointed nugget of wisdom from you, which I assume won't be difficult to get out of you, seeing as you're very direct, which is quite refreshing. So if somebody wants to level up their leadership skills or their management skills, and they don't know where to start, they're starting from a clean slate, no idea what's going on, what is the one thing that you would recommend that they do first before they're even thinking about doing anything else?
Obviously, call me. But after that, I think first, I have a book that I really love called First Break All the Rules. And the concept of it is, a lot of the time when people haven't had leadership and management training, what they often do is that they look at people around them and see, what is this guy doing? What is this girl doing? And they look for idols. Unfortunately, a lot of people look around the big world and they see people like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or people like that. And they're like, oh, I want to be totally like that. And the biggest thing, and the reason why I love First Break All the Rules, is that if you want to succeed in management, it is about getting to know and understand you first, and understand who are you, how do you succeed, what makes you amazing, and then leading with that. If you are not exceptionally assertive, direct, keeping people to exceptionally high standards, then you trying to be Elon Musk is going to fail, right? If you don't call people at 2 a.m. in the morning and expect them to answer in 10 seconds or get fired, like if you don't have that mindset, you are going to fail trying to be Elon Musk. So what I tell people is, you need to learn to be yourself as a leader. You ideally want to find people who have a similar personality to you, that you can look at and seeing how are they winning, what are the things they're doing that makes people like their style, and so on. And that's why I love the book called First Break All the Rules, because it goes through so many different personality and how people succeed in management, driving various strengths. So some people win for their directness, their ability to push people. Some people win in management because they're great at building relationships with people around them. Some people win in management because they care so much about the people around them. And the problem is, those management styles are so different. Some people win in management because they're exceptionally good at data and numbers, and when they make decisions, they're amazing decisions. So people win for different reasons, right? And if you start out by understanding, why am I winning? If you start out saying, why does my boss like me in my current job? What is the personality? What is the behavior? What are the things I do that makes me a success? And you then want to look at, well, what does that look like from a team perspective? So for example, again, if you're an SEO, many SEOs are exceptionally good at data. They have natural weaknesses, which is it often makes delegation a little bit harder, but they're generally smashing intelligent, right? They're generally really smart people, and they generally make very good choices. Very often their communication skills are not great. So it gives them some things to work on, but it also helps them understand, where's my superpower? In management, what is the thing that sets me apart that most of my management colleagues would not be able to do?
Gotcha. So step one is to read the aforementioned book. Step two is to call Mads, because if you can't figure out where your management superpower is, he definitely will be able to help you out. And we're going to actually leave some links in the description below so that you know where you can actually find Mads and work on everything that we discussed here today, and hopefully level up your business and scale it without you burning out. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, Mads. I really appreciate it. And we will see the rest of you listeners very, very soon.
Thank you very much. It was awesome to share.
Amazing. Right. Bye, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay up to date with the latest in SEO strategies. For more in-depth resources and premium link building services, visit us over at SirLinksalot.co. And if you're looking to connect with other SEO professionals, join the conversation in our Facebook group over at the SEO Roundtable. Thanks a lot.